Gordon, could you introduce us to where you're from and where you were born?
My people are Wanyi. We're further up in the Gulf. And our land and our country also go across the Northern Territory border as well. I was born in a little town called Cloncurry, which is in far northwest Queensland. That's in the heart of Mitakootie country, Mitakootie land. And next to that is Mount Isa, which is Kalkadoon country.
As a child, were you surrounded by art or culture or anything like that in your family?
Every now and then I'd be given, a pen or a pencil and a bit of paper, and I'd draw, or I'd have an uncle who would be showing me how to draw. One of my pathways of coming into contact with art was working as a ranger and having connection with Aboriginal Creations, which was a shop in George Street, and it was run by a fellow called John Conroy. And John had connections or access to all the communities and a lot of local artists. And I was seeing, the kind of work like that, what they were doing, which wasn't, tradition oriented. And I was more interested in that sort of work because it was speaking to me more as a blackfella. There was a show called Maroochy Art Prize, and people were saying to me, "Oh, look, if you want to be an artist, why don't you put a work in there?" So I ended up doing this work, and what was it about was I just called it, a return to our creation time or something like that, and it was about living today but wanting to be, back where it all started as well. So I done this serpentine type images, and of course, I wanted that connection to tradition as well as to today. So I won first prize, and winning that, it's like maybe there is hope or possibilities, for me to do art.
How did that more political element come into your painting?
Just being a blackfella in this country is political. All I do really is look at the world as a blackfella and translate that world visually, be it on a canvas or be it on in a sculpture or an installation or a poem. That's all we do. We metaphorically clarify or describe our realities. I directly like to draw on familiarity or pop culture or events which connect people. One of the things that I was moved by was George Orwell's Animal Farm. He looked at a farm of animals as a microcosm to humanity. I started symbolising Aboriginal people as all native animals, from crocodiles to goannas to kangaroos to wombats, and they were all Aboriginal people. But then when I was representing introduced people, they had to be introduced species. So, I started using sheep, cane toads, pigs, camel, and other invasive animals.
You also have, I guess, a group of other human figures that you've used throughout your work.
One of the main characters or personalities that I have used of recent times, I call her Bitumen Barbie. She's an Aboriginal woman that is blonde. I set her up like a superhero, whereby she can do amazing things, and she has, extrasensory perception. It's also making comment on Barbie, as in Barbie and Ken, culture's perception of what is beauty. Like, for example, another one of those characters is a Black Elvis, and I call him Pelvis Deadly. I've done so many works with Black Elvis only because in every Murray community there's usually an Aboriginal Elvis fan. So as a figure of resistance, Bruce Lee came on the scene, so this character was created. Fruit Flea, he's diminutive and he likes to eat fruit. And what he does is he hits people with corn, and what it does, it makes them weak. Thus he defeats them. So that's kind of like just one of the little silly scenarios, within the work that I do.
Behind us there are works about Eddie Gilbert and Dundalli. Can you sort of explain how that's come into your work?
They come out of a greater body of work called Murray Land. It actually came about by this Australian curator that's living in Amsterdam. Her name is Vivian Zaherl, who was working on a massive project called Frontier Imaginaires. She asked me to paint the history of Queensland from an Aboriginal perspective. For the Frontier Imaginaires exhibition, I bring personalities and characters from the history, from the past, and I make them relevant today. If there's one thing that humanity is scared of, is nuclear war. And by doing that with Dundalli, I have spears, I have a Woomera, and I have him having nuclear warheads on the end of his spear. But also on another level, look, he's got a Woomera. I mean, that could be seen as reference to the Woomera rocket range as well.
You use text in a lot of your paintings, nearly all of them.
When I think about it, like it's the English language that I use. I generally say, English is my second language. I don't know my first because the colonisers had stole it from me. Therefore, I have a licence now to use that English language any which way I want. I bastardise it, I misspell it, I break it up into syllables, I make up my own words, and I change it.
Your works often reminds me of, say, comic books or graphic novels.
I was exposed to comics as a kid, like most.
Recently you painted on the outer shell of a great big dome.
There was a writer, Alexis Wright, and the project was about the book, which is totally metaphorical as well. It's very complex, and what I had to do was construct the dwelling, Angel's Palace.
The other aspect of your work that I just wanted to bring up was sport.
I do use sport or heroes within sport to heroicise or to make us more powerful.